Well, it's a question that I was going to ask last week if I had been here about the relationship between when you talk about kind of the inner meaning of Sabbath, of rest, and creativity. What is the relationship between those?
Well, Sabbath is a day of rest. I'm not quite sure if God creates, everything in 6 days and rests on the seventh. I'm not quite sure how long a day is in God's world. If you were to, I think, look at Sabbath metaphorically, not so much kind of like the Orthodox Jews where, it's Sunday, and as you find in the Gospel of, I think, Luke, he's sitting with the Jews and they're all talking about Sabbath, and he says, look, if your sheep was to fall into a well, into a hole, would you like climb down and help your sheep out? Are you just going to let the sheep in this dark hole just because it's Sabbath? Sabbath was made for man, not man for Sabbath. Because if you create a concept and then force the human being to live inside that concept, the concept that was supposed to free the human being all of a sudden becomes a cradle of bondage. It becomes burdensome, And I think most of these ideas that are floating around these days, they really just burden us. There is nothing about them that frees us or liberates us or makes our the weights we carry any lighter. I think they just add more weight to our backs, and we just kind of, our backs and knees get broken. You walked into my ethics class when you were 17. First, most 17-year-olds are still in high school. You graduated a year early. Then you had the misfortune of being in my class. Then you had another misfortune of liking the class. Then you had, I don't know if it's a misfortune or a fortune, where you said, you know what, at the age of 17, I'm just going to study philosophy. Do you know how long it takes people to figure out what they should study? Do you know how long it takes people to figure out what they like and whether or not they can actually go to school and get a degree in the things that they like? Not because of money, not because of fear, but because they really, really enjoy it. You're now 30 and you have your PhD and you teach. You know why you're able to do all the things that you're doing right now and all the accomplishments that you have? Because at the age of 17, something about you came to rest. You realized you're not going to play with history, psychology. You're not going to do math, geography. You're not going to go into the world of art. You're just going to do philosophy and religious studies. Your mind found direction. It rested on that direction. You rested on philosophy and religion but not any religious ideas or religious denomination, not any philosophical ideas. It had to be a specific, a particular. Those specific philosophies or ideas had to have enough juice inside them to bring about certain feelings and emotions inside you. You have been resting in philosophy, in philosophical ideas for almost 20 years, Cassie. Now, it doesn't mean that when you're resting, there is no struggle, there are no movements. But you have found your anchor at the age of 17. It has been a source of creativity as well as dread and anguish. Not very many people are that lucky, you know. The other thing is this: because you have found rest in these ideas, if you pay attention, you realize about 80% of your life as a wife, your life as a mother, your life as a professor, your life as a daughter, every single life that you have, it has shades of philosophy in them. Everything about your life rests in philosophy. And that makes your life profoundly holy. It's sacred. You know, it may be that you say, well, you know, I haven't found a full-time position. I want to rest in teaching philosophy, but I can't because the job market is really, really bad. Maybe I should just go into publishing. Well, you're not going to write things about textile unless it's connected to how the Christians would go to the Muslim world to learn how to do textile. You're not going to write about geography unless it has to do with how geography creates certain type of philosophy, either passive or active. If you have a land that gives you a lot of food, well, compassion and forgiveness becomes the way of life. If you have a land where food doesn't grow as much and people oftentimes go hungry, an eye for an eye, justice, should you steal somebody's food, should you not give to the poor, to the hungry. You've been doing this for about 25 years, Cassie. Rest does not mean trouble-free. It doesn't mean it's painless without struggle. It means you have found something valuable, you rest in it, and all the difficulties of this rest, it makes those things more meaningful. You know, rest is the father in the story of the prodigal son. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter how bad your life gets. It doesn't mean you won't forget. It doesn't mean you won't use profanities. It doesn't mean you're not going to hate life. But at the end of the day, Cassie, you're going to go back to the Father. You're going to go back to the place that has given you rest for the past 25 years. Rest in terms of meaning, in terms of purpose. the way you make your money, the way you want to raise your daughter, the sort of conversations you want to have with your husband, the sort of friendships you want to have. You know, Sarah was invited to this birthday for this kid at a park somewhere. So she took the kids, I think, too. And these are parents who are, some are pregnant, some are parents to like 2, 3, 4-year-olds. They were all talking about, you know, how every night they sit together and get high. You know, and they like to drink on the weekend. I don't know what the kids do while the parents are like mindless walking around. You know, you get intoxicated and high by reading a book, by writing. And it's not that you don't like money or power, but it's not the centerpiece of your life. You know, the nice thing about the rest that you found at the age of 17 and then you kept nourishing it, you know, the marriage vow in sickness and in health. Whether you fall into poverty, whether you win the lottery and become a millionaire, you're always going to go back to this anchor, this philosophy. It doesn't mean that you won't forget or become arrogant and boastful and all that stuff. But the fact that you've been doing this for 25 years, you catch yourself being an idiot more often. And there are lots of things that consumerism, capitalism forces upon you. I mean, it's a trap. It's a culture that creates lots of traps for you. And if you don't have any awareness about you, you're going to fall into these traps. And you're going to get all bloodied. And then you're going to struggle for freedom. It'll take you a few years, and eventually you'll become free, but only to fall into the next trap. Those traps don't exist for you. In many ways, you're not looking for a Tesla. If you have it, it's great, but it's not like, you know, keeping you up at night. You don't want to be a millionaire. You don't want to be a dean. Maybe later on. In your retirement, when you're closer to retirement. The point I'm trying to make is the many things that worry other people, it won't worry you. And there's a good amount of faith in rest. You know, you become very passive. It doesn't mean you can practice rest and express rest well all the time. But it does mean that you're there.